forecast for the week of June 25th, 2023. If you're interested in last week's astrology and how it played out in the collective, then by all means, stay tuned to the end of this forecast when I'll go over it a little bit and we can sort of get into it and you can see how things were working astrologically. But let's get into this week's forecast. Now, the first thing is we're still in the midst of very Neptunian times. The second half of June, you'll recall, is all about Neptune, Neptunian times, Neptunian energy. We get a little bit of a break this week for just not much, but that's the overall vibe. So we're expecting things to go a little bit sideways. We're expecting the unexpected. We're requiring a little bit of a serendipitous approach to things. That's the overall, always true thing about this week. It's also true that Venus has entered the shadow of her retrograde. She did that last week. And while I would not say that we're really in the midst of a Venus retrograde kind of thing, we're getting pretty close. Venus is slowing down quite a bit. She's just barely moving up there in the sky. And so we're kind of experiencing some of the things that would be slowdowns in, let's say, our social life and romance. And also, it's starting to be a very bad time to get things appraised or evaluated, to buy luxury items, to begin new creative projects, to buy works of art and things like that. Venus retrograde isn't so good for that. As I said, we're not there yet, but this week, particularly when it comes to things like valuations and luxury items and things like that, this week is a week to be very, very careful. And that's because, well, there's a couple of reasons, but you'll pick up on it as we go along, I'm sure. First of all, we start off on Sunday with Mercury square to Neptune. Now, Mercury-Neptune squares are always, you could just think about, Mercury retrograde on steroids. They're always very slippery aspects. But this time around, Mercury is in his own home sign of Gemini, dual sign, right? There's two twins. And Neptune is over in his home sign of Pisces, two fish, right? So we have this duality, the multiplying of possibilities on both ends of this equation. And that's really going to be a little bit slippery. It's think about like Mercury retrograde raised to a power, you can sort of see. Mercury in Gemini is certainly capable of generating all sorts of possibilities in terms of what you're thinking. Well, maybe I'll do this, or maybe I'll do that. Maybe this is the better choice. Maybe that's the better choice, right? Mercury is just going to generate those possibilities. And Neptune is going to fuel them with enthusiasm or maybe even depression or something like that, and give you the best and the worst of each possibility. Really, really poor time for making practical decisions. And that would kind of stay the case Sunday into Monday. By later on Tuesday, it's Tuesday, it's later on Monday, Mercury leaves Gemini and goes into Cancer, and things will shift at that point in time. But Sunday, Monday, not good. And if you're communicating with somebody, you want to be straight out. And when I say not good, I mean not good for Mercury types of things. I don't mean like they're bad days. It's not good for Mercury stuff. Don't want to get you excited. If you're communicating with somebody, I mean, this is mostly an internal aspect because it's a square. So mostly you're of two minds, maybe. But if you're communicating with somebody, you want to probably do it in person if possible, or at least on the phone. It's not the kind of thing where you want to send a text or an email. The words alone are too likely to be misinterpreted. It is a very good time, on the other hand, let's not say this is a bad time. This is a very good time for meditation, for taking meandering walks, for just letting things fall as they may. Be careful driving, and if your GPS goes on the fritz, or if you miss your exit or something like that, I mean, enjoy the additional travel time rather than grousing about it, or maybe change your destination. That's another possibility, especially Sunday and then coming into Monday. Now, on Monday, fairly early on Monday, we have Mars in Leo square to Uranus in Taurus. This is a very active, impulsive kind of energy. Mars in fiery Leo, square to Uranus. Uranus is always, it's another one of these, Uranus, if you look at the very glyph for Uranus, it's a dual kind of thing. It could be this way, could be that way, flip and flop. Very, very impulsive action is what's suggested. And so people are going to be a little quick, a little short-tempered. Patience is not going to be a big thing. I don't think you're going to have to search pretty hard for patience, maybe even your own patience. And so, yeah, this is a be careful, especially, that Mercury Neptune can get you sort of spinning in your own head. And then Mars Uranus comes around and now you got to act on things. It's not like you can sort of take it easy because Mars Uranus is pushing us around to act. Sunday, the one thing we could say about Sunday is it is a weekend, so maybe we won't do so much damage right away, right? When it's not like it's not going to do too much in the way of business and stuff like that on a Sunday, probably. But Sunday, Monday, you want to kind of take it easy. You want to be a little bit careful about things. We're also fueled by the active first quarter moon in Libra, really making us feel like we should get moving with things. I mean, it would actually be a great time if you've already planned things out and you don't have anything much in the way of a decision to make. Well, it's probably pretty okay, but it's going to be a little tough it's going to be a little tough to get everybody else on board. And, you might be all set for things. You could probably wait for Tuesday, Wednesday. Now, you'll still have this active waxing moon. You can still take some of that Mars Uranus energy, I'm sure. We're moving far enough away from Mercury square Neptune. And so midweek, Tuesday, Wednesday, these are your days if something's got to get done. We are coming up to the Sun and Mercury both trining Saturn. And so that's giving us a little bit more of a steadying kind of influence. It's not quite so impulsive and up in the air. Saturn helps to slow things down a bit. The Sun and Mercury are both in Cancer, where it's a watery, emotional, but a little bit cautious kind of sign, and we could probably use that. The moon will be in Scorpio, and that's a very cautious moon. It'll be doing fun things like trining Saturn and Neptune, and then sextiling Pluto at the end of Capricorn now. So it's maybe not that bad a Scorpio moon. So midweek, Tuesday and Wednesday, those are your days for doing stuff, right? That's your practicality days. It's a relative break. It's a relative break. Now, Thursday would be part of that too, but what happens is that Friday, Neptune stations to retrograde, which means Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all under the spell of Neptune station. This is, now go back to what I said about Sunday and just now amplify the whole thing. It's a really bad time for practical decisions. It's a really bad time for financial decisions. It's a really bad time for anything that is down on the earth. You have your opportunity period for that this week. It's not like there's no time for that this week. You have your opportunity period for that this week. It's just not Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But you know what Neptune stations are great for, especially with the aid of the Sagittarius moon coming in? So great, fun weekend. And for those of you that have a 4-day weekend, that happens anymore, but in the US, Tuesday is a holiday. So, possibly it's a 4-day weekend for some folks. It should be a really good time, and it should be really great right from the get-go. Neptune stations, they're kind of fun because, everything is loose and uncertain and playful and, well, not necessarily playful, but loose and uncertain. And you can make some fun out of it, especially as the moon, Sagittarius, waxes towards the full moon. Really good time, right? This is good. So right away, Friday night, Saturday night, usually it's one or the other. Both nights are great. Almost to the full moon, which is going to be on Monday. But you don't need it to be completely full. Perhaps it is better not to be full. Well, again, even the full moon, which is coming on July 3rd, Monday, is, it's going to blow things out of proportion. It's going to sort of extend Neptune's station. So the weekend of the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, it's got a little bit of that. It's got a lot of bit of that Neptunian energy, that seeing things in a fisheye mirror, seeing too much or too little in a situation, stuff like that. Okay, so that's kind of the way we should approach it. But it's great for fun. It's also great. It's great for meditation. It's, Neptune station is wonderful for meditation. It is wonderful for playful creative projects, right? Playful, not like you're looking for the product, but you're playing, you're creating, you're doing things because you want to do them. It's fun to just sort of let serendipity rule. Serendipity, there's that word again. Let serendipity rule. Just see what happens. Throw the paint on the canvas and see what you can shape it into. Maybe come back at a later point and turn it into something practical. But for the moment, you don't need to do any of that. Okay. For the moment, you're just enjoying yourself. Neptune stations, could be productive for shamanic or psychedelic journeying, psychic experiences, and things like that. That'd be really good. And some of us will have an extended cocktail hour. That's another Neptunian kind of thing. Just be careful with stuff. And again, everything is vague and everything is blown a little out of proportion. Things could look much better or much worse than they usually do. So, it's not a very realistic energy, at least not on this plane. It's okay if you're traveling to the astral worlds or something like that, but it's not very practical on this plane, and there's no reason why you can't enjoy it. Now, for a little recap of last week. Now, I don't usually like to do this. I don't usually like to talk about political events, social things that happen, or stories in the news because, well, some of you, not you, but some people tend to get a little bit wound up about things one way or the other. And really, I mean, in this context, I'm here to say things like Tuesday and Wednesday are good days to work and take care of practical things, and the weekend is good for playing and stuff like that. And I don't like to really make it too much beyond that. But this last week, I think we can make an exception because the collective imagination was completely absorbed in a very Neptunian theme. And it turned out to be a tragic theme on top of all, which was the submersible Titan, which got lost looking to go take a peek at the Titanic. And so we just in general, we're in a very Neptunian time. We had sharp Neptunian aspects. The sun was square to Neptune last Sunday. It was right after a Saturn station, and Saturn rules falls. Actually, coming up to the Saturn station, there were a bunch of stories about falls. There were 2 stories in the US about dogs that had fallen. One fell off a cliff in Oregon, and one had fallen off of a tower in Connecticut. And there was actually a murder that took place by someone, well, being pushed, but falling off a bridge in Germany. 3 Americans were involved. So, the heavy energy of the Saturn station together with this Neptune Sun square, right? Very, very Neptunian. And it caught our imagination. This was something that everybody was looking at. Everybody was interested in this thing. And, part of it, you can certainly, the picture of, being in this tiny little tube that is underwater and it's dark and there's no way out, it's just awful. Like, the scenarios that you could generate. And, the news media was certainly helping us. If you had trouble, and I don't think many of us had trouble thinking of how horrible it could be, no matter what happened, the news media was there, and there was this kind of countdown to 96 hours, all very Neptunian, all very, very Neptunian. So let's take a quick little look at, I'm going to share my screen over here, take a quick little look at the map for the Sun Neptune square. And what you can see here is, now this right about over here is the location of the Titanic, right about over here, a little bit to the southeast of St. John's, and it's out sort of direct out from Boston. You make like a little triangle this way. And you can see that at the Sun-Neptune square, the Sun and Neptune were very, very close to this area. Right? Both the Sun and Neptune were close to that area. And then, again, what takes our imagination? Well, as I said last week, we start to see things at the Capricorn ingress. We start to not the Capricorn. Well, yes, the Capricorn, but in this case, it was the Cancer ingress. We start to see things, what's prominent in what place. And so here we have the Sun at 0 degrees Cancer. This is right at the moment of the solstice on Wednesday. This is after the fact now. But again, here's Neptune, and Neptune at this point in time, and the Sun is not very far away, is right here, right in this same area. Just, again, what are we paying attention to? What are we thinking about? And it brings us right to this area. Now, when I was given the forecast for the solstice, what I said was, I went down the line and said, well, this line goes right through Brazil and so on. But it actually wound up being in the middle of the ocean that our attention got drawn. And then, as though I have not completed doing the chart for when they lost contact. That's a rather macabre thing. But here is the chart for Neptune station, right? Neptune is on the IC again at his station, which is on Friday the 30th. Again, it's the same area over here, and even the moon is chiming in, always a representative of the collective in this kind of situation. I did look at the chart as far as I could calculate it for the time when the contact was lost. And it's just very Neptunian. Of course, it was going for the Titanic, which was a very Neptunian event. And we have all kinds of things to look at there. We have the fact that transiting Neptune, and remember, to say that this line is here, the line isn't everywhere. It's a big world, and we have the lines going, making a little slice through one particular part of it. That's pretty precise. And transiting Neptune right on the moon of the chart for when the Titanic sank. So, and the Sun is on the chart of, well, this isn't, I don't want to make this into too much of a precise kind of thing. It's the sort of thing I share with professional astrologers, in our newsletters and stuff like that. I don't, it's a public thing. I like to stay a little bit more on the, light and easy side of things. LITE, light. Keep it fun and breezy. But I thought that this one, because it was a real, fascination, and Neptune is fascination. What are we fascinated with? Well, that's what we were fascinated with last week. So it's worth noting too, though, that this very powerful Neptunian energy, there were also in a couple of places boatloads of people who are migrants who drowned, right? And that is also a very Neptunian story. It didn't capture our imagination quite so much. It would not be, the public did not quite dial into that the same way, but that is also very Neptunian. And part of the whole Neptunian vibe is sacrifice. And in a way, it's awful to think about it, but the people, anyone who died at sea during this period of time is essentially, they lost everything in a way so that we could see some of the dangers, so that we could see what is happening with the migrants and so on, and the dangers that they're through. And in that sense, it is a sacrifice. Again, I don't want to get too heavy over here. This is not the place for it, but just a few things to think about as we go through this very Neptunian week, and perhaps see, maybe in a little bit different way, see some more things that we could relate to to Neptune, to the seas, to the theme of sacrifice. Hopefully not human sacrifice, but some of these things that will hopefully stir up the positive side of Neptune, which is greater compassion. Watch out for the forecast for July. The July forecast will be showing up on Wednesday, the 28th. I'm taking advantage of that opportunity period in the middle of the week, and so should you.